He had more energy to hang out with our toddler. And so I was like, oh, okay, he has something. Um, so yeah, I wasn't resentful. I was really happy that he wanted to take on a lot of the cooking. He had so much more energy. It actually started helping our lifestyle at home. Um, and then I got really jealous because he started dropping. Like, we were buying him new jeans like every 2 weeks because his jeans were just falling off. And so, yeah, so about 8 months in, I went, all right, you obviously got something here. I'm gonna try it out.
Welcome to Healing with the Diamonds podcast. This show features Larry and Kay Lynne Diamond, along with guests who are passionate about helping families heal together. Through personal stories and powerful conversations, you'll hear real life experiences and practical tools for reclaiming health. Please note, the information shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your health routine. If you're enjoying Healing with the Diamonds podcast, we'd love your help spreading the word. Leaving a quick review or rating on your favorite podcast platform helps others find us and helps more families start their own healing journey. Thanks so much for listening. Now, here's today's episode.
Hey everyone, I'm Kay Lynne Diamond,
I'm Larry Diamond.
and together we are Healing with the Diamonds. Today we have a really interesting thing that we're going to do. We're going to be doing a joint podcast with Kay Ruff. Kay is a certified personal trainer and has been since 2007. He has run a metabolic testing program for a large gym, like overseeing lots of programs in the West region. He's also certified as a personal trainer, a life coach, a performance enhancement specialist, and he, along with his nutrition coaching certifications, he specializes in low-carb lifestyles like ketogenic, carnivore diets, stuff we're totally interested in. He's helped so many clients, thousands of clients over the last 18 years learn how to just basically achieve their best lifestyle through movement, lifestyle management, and just proper nutrition. So he and his wife, Bethany, have created something called Boundless Body LLC, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about it. And then he's going to be interviewing us as well. So thank you, Casey, for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so very much for the invite. This is going to be a lot of fun. You've already pumped my tires a little bit and really inflated my ego with that introduction. So
Hey, that's
I really appreciate that. Yeah. Flying high. Yeah, we decided to do kind of a joint podcast and interview each other. And I think it's a great idea. So as part of that, I'm going to introduce the two of you as well. Hopefully it feels as good to your ego as it did to mine. Larry and Kay Lynne Diamond have experienced a profound transformation in their family's health, a journey that has significantly altered their lives. Together, they have shed a remarkable 190 pounds. That's crazy, you guys. That's amazing. And successfully reversed a multitude of health issues, including sleep apnea, allergies, asthma, severe irritable bowel syndrome, psoriasis, depression, anxiety, brain fog, joint pain, and persistent fatigue. Oh my goodness. Their approach has been rooted in an ancestrally inspired way of eating and living, harmonized with modern, specific scientific insights, and a deep respect for the wisdom of nature. Larry's passion for health and wellness led him to become a primal certified health coach, which is very well renowned, actually. That's a great certification, one that I don't have myself. It's pretty cool. He made a pivotal career change to focus on health coaching, dedicating 6 years to this field as a coach and researcher for the fasting method, also a very prestigious certification. Understanding the challenges that families face when trying to take control of their health, Larry and Kay Lynne established Healing with the Diamonds. Their mission is to provide support and guidance to individuals at any stage of their wellness journey, and they are committed to helping others discover what works best for themselves. That's pretty cool, you guys.
Thank you. Hey, that sounds good too. That's great for our egos as well.
And I often say I started in 2013, and my academic, but also just as a kid exploring the universe, I've always been interested in nature and nature's wisdom and our ancestors. And even though my degrees were in that, I wasn't applying a proper human diet to myself. And I got very sick, the severe IBS. I was so malnourished. I had bloody stools for over a year, but I wasn't willing to go see a doctor. And I'm not giving anyone else medical advice, but then I just had an epiphany. I studied something called cultural ecology, which is the indigenous wisdom, how our ancestors remained strong and sturdy. You know, the myth of the average lifespan being whatever, 30 years, that's based on infant mortality, accidents, warfare sometimes. But when you dig deeper, I mean, our ancestors at 100 had six packs and we're still hunting. So yes, the ancestral wisdom healed me. Kay Lynne observed without calorie counting. I took out what I call the big four. We can discuss the big four. And within a month, my severe IBS was 80 to 90% resolved in a month. And then Kay Lynne was observing this and talking about ego. The greatest thing I've ever done is Kay Lynne did all the work, but she's my first client. Health coaching client. So when your wife heals and regains her vitality, yeah, that's my ego stroke.
Yeah, that's amazing. Kay Lynne, I had a question for you. Sometimes with couples, it can be really challenging and almost like triggering.
Mhm.
Some people I notice will like sabotage the other person. When you were observing Larry and his health transformation and him improving so much, like what was your initial reaction and how were you able to receive that information? Where again, I see a lot of couples, if somebody's improving the other person, maybe even like sabotaging the other person.
Yeah. That's a great question. And I think that's one of the things that I appreciate about our story because, well, first of all, when he first came in and said, "Hey, guess what? We're giving up bread, we're giving up wheat. I've read this book called Grain Brain." And so I went, "Okay, all right." Because here's what was going on in my head. Here's another fad. We're going to do it for, or he's going to do it for a month. Maybe if it goes really crazy, like 6 weeks, and then it'll just drop by the wayside. Kind of like, I joke about our exercise room, like the exercise equipment, like that room is where exercise equipment goes to die. Like, it's just something where we try it. And we both, like, before we met, we both tried different ways to get, lower calories, more movement. I went vegetarian at one point. Did you go vegan at one point?
No,
Or no?
no,
Okay.
no, but
No.
vegetarian for a few months
Yeah.
and then I said,
So we, and again, not knocking that for us,
yeah.
that wasn't, that just, I couldn't ever follow it. So really, I just thought it was another fad. We had some interesting circumstances. His uncle had come to live with us and he was in the kind of middle stages of Alzheimer's. And so the family, what we were doing as a family, I was taking care of his uncle, a lot of his personal needs and such. And so Larry said, "Hey, I'm just going to do all the cooking." And I was like, "Done. Like, that sounds delightful." So when he took over the cooking, he instituted that grain free, right? And so that kind of naturally, just when we were here, that's how we ate. And we chose, our daughter was 2.5 going on 3 at the time. And we are not somebody who are going to make multiple meals. And so everyone ate the same way. And so that started it. And he was doing it all the time. I'm an elementary school teacher. And so I was doing that here. But then as I went to school and ate out with friends or ate lunch and so forth, I was still consuming grains, consuming, UPF. And so I wasn't gaining all the benefits. But very soon I noticed within 4 to 6 weeks, he was not as grouchy anymore. He wasn't getting the hangry. He had more energy to hang out with our toddler. And so I was like, "Oh, okay, he has something." Um, so yeah, I wasn't resentful. I was really happy that he wanted to take on a lot of the cooking. He had so much more energy. It actually started helping our lifestyle at home. Um, and then I got really, really jealous because he started dropping. Like, we were buying him new jeans like every 2 weeks because his jeans were just falling off. And so, yeah, so about 8 months in, I went, "All right, you obviously got something here. I'm gonna try it out," because I wanted, his was more about like wellness, internal wellness, and I mean, and I saw that, and that's a great thing. But dude, I wanted to be losing that weight and looking as good as him as well.
Wow. Kay Lynne, I don't know. I take a little bit of issue with you calling Larry a grouch. He does not look at all like a grouch. He is an angel. So for you to say that, I don't know about that. I take issue with
No,
that.
you know
Yeah,
what his family's nickname for him when he was younger was Dirty Larry, like a play on the
That's
Dirty
funny.
Harry. Yeah, and
Yeah.
he had a temper. Man, watching him drive was
Wow.
holy schmoly. But no, but again, so look, it's amazing where he was and what and just really focusing I mean, it was started with nutrition, right? Nutrient dense foods, eating at the right times or the right times for us, not eating at the right times for us. And then through that, it facilitated just happier overall. But then we were able to move more, which makes everyone happy, get out more, which makes us happy. So it's become this transformation that not only transformed him physically, but even over the last few years, a really big spiritual transformation as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. Larry, with your background, it's really quite interesting how you were able to find all of this and it clicked so well for you. It's funny that the kind of stuff that we learn when you find low carb and you find ancestral wisdom and how people lived as we evolved. Once you see it, it becomes pretty apparent, but it's also something that seems to be hidden in plain sight. Like, what was it like for you to make those kind of discoveries? And did those things kind of click for you pretty quickly?
they clicked really quickly. And I will say that was such an insightful question because the 6 years of health coaching and now we're in our first year with Healing with the Diamonds. Family dynamics are very important. The ancestral information absolutely clicked with me. My natural orientation of respect for my ancestors. We were filming this or talking right before October 31st. So that's All Hallows Eve. And I just heard a Rupert Sheldrake video. All Saints Day is going to be on Saturday, November 1st. And then November 2nd is All Souls Day. So this respect and connection with our ancestors, their struggles is actually not just Mexico. It's also European and obviously Asia. If anyone watched Mulan, they have great respect for their ancestors. And yes, the also I like to think of I never got a PhD. I was in 2 PhD programs. I decided to marry this delightful entity instead of finishing the PhD, and best decision ever. But I take great pride in what I call being a citizen scientist. And I will throw down with any professional, any Nobel Prize winner, PhD. Citizen science right now is the heart and soul and is the true science. And many people with PhDs are, in fact, citizen scientists. And there's a great human named Richard Feynman. And Richard Feynman says science is the belief in the ignorance of experts and also have no respect for authority whatsoever. Listen to the argument, listen to the basis of the argument. So that first weekend, I found Professor Tim Noakes. So I quickly had the question, you can only have so much protein, right? We can talk about protein, but even the most protein people, maybe I'll just say 30% at the most. Then we have to decide if we're going to be high carb or high fat. So that first weekend, I looked up why is fat bad? I just put the why. Up till then, I had just gone, oh, fat is bad. But I asked, why is fat bad? I found Professor Tim Noakes, who is somebody everyone should hear about. He had quite a movement in his journey from being the carb loading Bible to fat adapted athletes. I'm sure you know of him. And he was talking about Ansel Keys. I'm also a ex-high school science teacher. And ironically, Richard Feynman made that statement that science is the belief in the ignorance of experts, talking to high school science teachers. So I found out about Ansel Keys, the cherry picking. And I remember I was like, oh, fat is bad was all made up. And I
Yeah.
have this natural orientation. I also loved history. So I realized that calorie counting seed oils and low fat was the fad. And that actually I was going back to what has been tried and true for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years. So it was very easily, like almost in a microsecond, to go, yep, you were fooled, Larry. Move on. Let's start healing. So good question.
Yeah, well, good for you. I know we both really love the work of Nina Teicholz, and she tells the story of, Ansel Keys and how we got to the place where we are really, really well. You mentioned Tim Noakes. I recommend the book Real Food on Trial to anybody. It's quite lengthy, but he does an amazing job telling his story, how he went on trial to defend some of the ideas that he would, later change his mind about as far as carbohydrates. He was pre-diabetic himself, running all those marathons. It didn't really make sense to him. But he also, there's a few chapters in that book where he breaks down human metabolism. And I love the way that you talked about the constraints on protein, and then we have to choose where we're going to get our energy from. You have to get energy either from fat or carbohydrates. And one of my former guests, a friend of mine, he's the author of the book called Body Science, talks about it like two sides of the same coin, or two hemispheres. One he calls ketosis, which is when the body's running on fat, it's producing ketones. And he actually coined the term glucosis for the other hemisphere, the other way that our body can use energy when it's running on sugar. And it really does a great job describing how when the body's in ketosis, the way things work, it's quite natural, it's really easy, it's very anti-inflammatory. This other system, this glucosis, when our body's burning sugar, is really a lot more like an emergency system that really should not be running all the time. And if you had a Formula One car and you were throttling the engine all the time, like those cars are not meant to be running at such a high rate all the time. They will break down, they use a tremendous amount of fuel, they produce a lot of, exhaust and that kind of thing.
Love that.
The other car would be maybe something a lot more economical. It could have a much better gas mileage. It doesn't put out as much of the negative kind of byproducts. And so thinking about it in that way, when we walk around natural landscapes, you just don't see food spontaneously growing. You either have to destroy a field, nuke it down to nothing, and then have some type of industrial system that can plant, all the things you guys talk about, the grains, the wheat, the corn, the rice, whatever it is. You either have to do that, or if you're looking for edible plants, again, on a natural landscape, like good luck. Like you don't find them very often. And you certainly don't find them all year round. Like around me in my neighborhood, there's lots of different plants that grow, and maybe people have gardens, or I know of like 2 or 3 different like fruit trees, but those are gone now. Like we've already had a hard freeze, and all that stuff is unavailable, and people don't realize it because they go to the grocery store and they just see mangoes and apples and grapes 365 days out of the year in northern Canada. Like you can go anywhere on the planet and it's like that. And so people forget what came to you very naturally, Larry, which I find so interesting. Is it was easy for you to understand how we would have been eating because you had that background in understanding ancient cultures. Kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Well, I'm really
Yeah.
interested what we both kind of talked a little bit about like my origin and Larry's origin. I'm curious how you started down this pathway, because you were obviously very successful as a coach, movement person. How did you get started? Were you always just naturally inclined for this, or did you have this big why to change?
Kay Lynne was telling me we were interested if you had ever hit rock bottom in your health, or you were lucky enough to always, maybe even in high school or junior high, or always be interested in being physically and mentally well. Or, yeah, your origin story.
Sure. Kay Lynne, you're fortunate enough to be married to somebody who picked up on this very, very quickly. I'm a very slow learner. It took me much, much longer to learn some of this stuff. Yeah, I grew up here in the Salt Lake Valley. My dad does sports for local TV stations, so I've been exposed to sports my entire life, always interested in them. But yeah, grew up in the low-fat era. I was kind of the chunky kid. I became interested in fitness in, middle school and high school. I ended up getting into a fight that I didn't want to get into, and I thought I should lift weights and that kind of thing. So, in my unfinished basement, I had a cheap set of weights and like different like workout programs like taped up to the walls and that sort of thing. So, yeah, worked at a gym when I was in high school. I studied architecture in college, but I I joined a gym nearby and started watching personal trainers, and I thought that it looked really fun the way they were, training their clients and working with different exercises and using heart rate monitors to help them, which I knew quite a bit about at the time. I ended up getting certified in 2007, March of 2007. I never intended it to be my career. I just thought it'd be a nice, kind of job, something I was interested in while I was studying architecture. And yeah, like I said, I was just a very slow learner. I got trained in using what is called a metabolic cart, which is a device, basically like a computer that's hooked up to an analyzer that is then hooked up to an umbilical cord that attaches to a mask while somebody is breathing in and out. This machine is collecting and analyzing their respirations. So one of the things we could measure, basically, if you've ever heard of like VO2, it's a VO2 test, essentially the volume of oxygen. Sometimes athletes do it or that sort of thing. But basically, like when you're sitting down as we are right now, we're just having a conversation. We're not breathing very much because we're not expending very much energy. If I were to sprint down the street as hard as I could, I'd be breathing a lot heavier because I would be burning more calories. And that's what these analyzers do. They measure the amount of air and respiration that's coming in and out. They could tell somebody the amount of calories that they're burning. If you work really hard, you burn more calories. If you don't work very hard, you burn less calories. But our analyzers would also go one step further, and they would analyze the difference between the oxygen that you would consume and the carbon dioxide that you would breathe out. And if you understand those numbers, you will understand not only, how many calories you're burning, but where are those calories coming from? Are you burning more carbohydrates or are you burning more fat? And so, back in 2007, we weren't, manipulating any of that kind of stuff. We didn't understand how you could affect how many carbohydrates or how many fat calories somebody could burn. It was more along the lines of, finding out how many calories you could burn. So for example, one of the tests we would do would be called a resting metabolic test, or resting metabolic assessment, where you would come in, you'd lay down, and we'd hook you up to all the stuff we described earlier. And you'd be laying down, you would just simply like relax and breathe into this machine. Well, that would give you, if we did the test for 20 minutes, it would give you a baseline number of calories that you would burn in that 20 minutes. And we'd extrapolate that to 24 hours to say, okay, your resting metabolic rate is X. It's whatever this number is. And that would be compared to like a formula that would set an average for somebody in that same age, height, weight, and gender, if that makes sense. And so let's say, Kay Lynne, you came in, you did the test. We found out that your resting metabolic rate was 1,500 calories. Maybe your expected metabolic rate was 1,800 calories, but we'd say, okay, you burn 1,500 calories at rest. You're a teacher, so you're maybe up and down a little bit. That's going to burn you an additional, 400 or 500 calories a day. You want to be working out, maybe 200 calories a day. Okay, there's your total burn. Now we've got these sliders that would say like, okay, your goal is to lose 1 pound a week, let's say. Okay, so now you need to either move 500 calories more than you currently are, or you need to eat 500 calories less than you currently are. 500 calories times 7 is 3,500, which is 1 pound of fat. So we just set this perfect little math formula to say like, great, okay, you burn 2,200 calories, so just go out and eat 1,700 calories. That's 500 calories a day. That's 1 pound a week. Yeah. You're just going to lose consistently 1 pound a week until you get to your target. I'll give you a guess. Like how successful do you think that was?
I know there's a great, actually, talking about the fasting method. If anyone still is in calories in, calories out mode, Dr. Jason Fung wrote the women's exercise. The title of the article is Exercise in Futility. So the Women's Health Initiative, mostly nurses, for 7 years tried this exact formula, and the average weight loss after 7 years, they actually dropped 500 calories on average, and they moved more, was like 2 pounds was the average weight loss, but their waist size went up. So they actually put on fat because we're not bomb kilometers, or we're linked system. Because they weren't addressing the frequency of eating and the type of foods, their metabolic rate dropped just as much, ironically, as they dropped their calorie intake, because they didn't have access to fat burning their body fat. Their metabolic rate dropped as well. Yeah, but you know what Bruce Lee said? Mistakes are always forgivable. Mistakes are always forgivable if we have the courage to admit them. So you had the courage to admit them. Prof. Noakes absolutely did. He teared up Lore of Running. I love that. So when we know better, we can be better, and our past should not be a prison. It should be a place to learn from. So, yeah,
That.
you know,
And so
Yeah.
once you did that, like, how long did it take you to go, huh, things are not jiving here.
yeah,
What's
yeah.
going on?
Years. It took years and years and so many stupid years of me not learning that lesson. I mean, it was, maybe 2012 when we got in contact with a coach that was saying, like, if you change, he was working with really high end triathletes. And he was saying,
Mm,
like, if you change a triathlete's diet and you feed them a lot of fat, they then go and race and burn tons of fat. And then they don't burn hardly any of their carbohydrates, which means they never bonk. So I've been a cyclist. I'd been racing bikes for years before that and eating tons of carbohydrates. I'm like, what is this guy? These people are eating bacon and cream. Like, what is going on? It makes no sense. But sure enough, that worked. Eventually, I got in touch with the Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teicholz, like we talked about before. We learned that you really could manipulate the fat and sugar burn. You could teach somebody to increase the amount of fat that they were burning, which was incredible. And it wasn't until later, when we were doing like weight loss contests that I got kind of, learned about keto and why keto was working for one of our clients. And that was in 2018. And that just sent me down the rabbit hole of learning about, what ketosis was, how it worked in the body. Very early on, people, kind of jokingly started calling me Keto Casey around the club. And I really, frankly, didn't like it. Yeah, right. I didn't want to be pigeonholed into this person that only did this one thing. And I was lucky that I had kind of a mentor and a boss that said, look, man, just embrace this. Like, people know you for this. You might as well learn about it. And I just decided then that I'm never going to know the most about this, but I'm never going to stop. I'm always going to continue in a quest to continue learning about this. And one really interesting thing, Larry, I think you'll find is one of the things that really solidified my understanding of low carbohydrate diets, carnivore diets, intermittent fasting in particular, is I noticed a trend that yes, if you consumed more fat and you consume less carbohydrates, your fat burn would increase and your sugar burn would decrease. And so now people are burning off more fat. But I was also noticing that the metabolic rate, the total number of calories burned, would not just be very high from fat, but the actual rate would be a few hundred calories higher than we would have expected for somebody. If somebody was doing intermittent fasting, that number could be 500, 600, 700 calories higher. And I was like, it was blowing me away. I never forget one guy in particular found low carbohydrate diets, started doing intermittent fasting, was seeing tremendous results, and he just wasn't hungry. I've heard your story and how you guys talk about, intermittent fasting, and you guys look at it the perfect way. It's not like I'm planning on fasting, I'm never going to eat for the next day and a half. It's like, I'm just not hungry. It's like an inconvenience almost, you know what I mean? So this guy comes in, he's feeling amazing. Based on his age, height, weight, and gender, his resting metabolic rate should have been about 1,950 calories. We did the test. It came back 2,600 calories. So he's burning 650 calories more than he should have. And 90% of those calories were coming from fat. So this dude is flying through body fat, just burning it all
yeah,
off.
that.
And I'm like, okay, this is good. I'm glad you have this number, but now your minimal number of calorie, you have to eat now at least 2,600 calories, because I think if you eat less than that, your metabolism is going to crash. And
No,
he just looked at me and he's like, but if I can't eat that many calories. Do you want me to go back to drinking soda and eating chips and whatever? And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. And it was finding the work of Jason Fung that helped me understand what truly happens to somebody's metabolism when they're fasting and they start opening up, their fat stores. It makes up for the calories somebody's not eating. You can burn fat from the food that you eat, or you can burn from stored. It was awesome. So it was cool to
I was
actually
going to
see
well,
that.
share the
and
anecdotal
well, yeah.
about me.
And
So,
then, yeah. And then I want to give you a term that I came up with that explains this perfectly, and you're going to love it, but
yeah.
go ahead.
But so about 4 months after I started changing up how I ate, and I had just lost maybe 10 to 15 pounds in the first 4 months.
5 months,
5 months.
actually, because
So
she had a lot of healing to do, which, yeah.
yeah, and we
So,
can talk
yeah,
about that
yeah.
too. I found out I had to have major surgery, and so it was a surgery that once I had it, I wasn't going to be able to do a lot of exercise. I wasn't going to be able to move a lot. I wasn't going to be able to lift things, and I was really bummed because I had just started feeling better. I was losing a little bit of weight, and I was just starting to get comfortable with moving more, and getting on the treadmill, walking more. And I was just bummed because I thought, oh no, it's gonna set me back. But, obviously we had made these changes in what we were eating, and I was less hungry, so I wasn't eating as often. So basically I had the surgery in May. just sat around all summer as an elementary school teacher, right? So I have the summer off, sat around all summer eating the way that we had changed to. And by August, I had lost another 20 pounds.
Yeah,
So just
that
that.
she and that's there's so many valuable lessons for both sets of our listeners there. We've been on Benazati, we've had Benazati on our podcast. He talks about vitamin P or vitamin patience and Kaylin and myself. So I ended up losing 120 pounds total, but 100 pounds in 1 year, almost exactly 100.
Amazing.
And I even took some time to ramp up, not cramp up. My cramps went away, thankfully, but I never once, not even for a single meal, I just don't do it. I never once counted calories, not a single time. I will not do that. Frankly, I'd rather die than count calories. But I still lost 100 pounds in a year. And to explain, I kind of intuitively knew what was happening. It was just a magical journey, but I came up with what I call a plate calorie deficit, but not an actual metabolic calorie deficit. Just like the gentleman you were working with, he and I and Kaylin and everyone doing this, because both intermittent fasting and low carb, high fat, non-inflammatory whole real foods and ancestral fats, very important. The type of fat, especially on high fat, is key, not seed oils. What happens is exactly what you described and what he lived and we both lived. Our metabolic rate, mine could have been 2,600 and I could have been having 1,600 calories a day. My body was just fine and secure because it had access to 1,000 calories of body fat that day, which isn't that what all of humanity has wanted for the last 100 years? So so I use the term to my clients, plate calorie deficit. You aren't going to have a metabolic slowdown. You'll feel amazing, but you have burned that day 500 to 100 calories, even if they're eating a meal, right? Like one meal might be a 1,300 calorie meal, but because by working with us, they've become fat adapted. Let's say it's a female, 2,000 calorie. She's then burned 700 calories of fat that day, had a full meal, 1,300 calories, no brain fog, no hunger that day. And Casey, she's just burned 700 calories of fat that day.
Standing. And another way to look at this is if you think about, that the body has, what is it, 5 liters? Is 5 quarts or 5 liters of blood in the body?
I think 5 quart. I don't know.
I
I don't know.
well,
Yeah, I'm going to
yeah.
say
Well,
I don't know. I'll tell a client, I don't know. I'm going to
Look
need
it
to
up.
read
we don't know.
that.
We should know. We don't know. It's fine. But the amount of blood that you have circulating in your body has, if you have normal blood sugar, has about a teaspoon of sugar inside of it.
4 grams,
And
yeah.
yep, between the liver and the muscles, you can store a little bit more sugar than that. But for most women, that number is going to be about 1,500 calories of sugar calories that they can store. For most men, because they've got a little bit more muscle mass, that might be 2,000 calories. But if you take somebody who is 200 pounds and they're 15% body fat, if we just do quick math, that means they have 30 pounds of fat on their body. And you multiply the 30 by how many calories there are in a pound of fat, which is 3,500. You're now dealing with somebody who has maybe 2,000 calories of sugar in their body, but they have somewhere around 100,000 calories of fat already on their body. And like you said, like most of us, we want it gone. We don't like it. It jiggles and it makes us bigger. And it can do inflammatory stuff in the body. We want it gone. And so when you create the right circumstances and open that up for fuel, your body can finally burn that off. And it doesn't need to decline its metabolic rate, like you said. And like you explained so well, your metabolic rate will actually increase and you can just burn off fat in a way that's really, really easy. I've heard you guys describe, trying different things in the past and trying to get good results. And it didn't really work, but trying a low carbohydrate diet was really easy. It got you into fasting very easily. And you never really felt like you were struggling that much, even though you were losing such a tremendous amount of fat. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. Again, I don't think I elaborated on vitamin P or vitamin patience, but again, both of us, Kaylin lost 70 pounds from January to November, which is amazing. And I think her dress size, I can't, what was it to start? And then you were down to size sixes,
Yeah.
so size 20 to size six in that 11 months. But we both started slowly, but I never got discouraged. So I remember my first month, I lost 2 pounds, but I was less angry. I was happier, I was more energetic, and I was blessedly less hungry. This is what I think the modern curse of the modern diet and conventional advice is being chronically hungry 24/7 at all body weights. It could be 150 pounds, 250, 550, 850. Once our fat is blocked, we have to eat over and over. If we're locked in, you've probably heard Marxists and say burning fat is like this 100,000 calorie big huge log. Burning carbs are like twigs. So if you're burning twigs, you're going to have to keep adding twigs over and over again. What I tell my clients is really focus beyond the scale or even beyond how clothes are fitting. At first, focus on how much better you're feeling, how much better you're feeling, non-scale victories. So I'll check in a month. Larry, I've lost 2 pounds like I did my first month. I'm like, how's your quality of life? How are you enjoying this food? Man, I went to a restaurant and I was able to not have the bun. All my friends were, and it felt like such a victory. This food, I'm so much happier. I'm like, the fat loss is gonna come. Trust the process. But you're already telling me that your quality of life in just a month is so much better. So that's my big suggestion to anyone, even if you don't work with us or Casey, focus on the non-scale victories. It could take us decades. I started at 47. I was impairing myself for decades and decades. My body wanted to start healing my mitochondria and cells and organs. Then it got to the fat loss. So be very mindful of non-scale victories is a big piece of advice to me.
I love that. So in 2020, when the pandemic hit, my wife and I both worked for the same company. We were placed on unemployment, which was obviously very challenging. And we decided, based on the circumstances, that we were going to just create our own company. And we were very, very thoughtful about our name, which we came up with, Boundless Body, because that was so important to us. And on that note, I know you guys have been extremely conscious of choosing healing as the word. You guys could have chosen fat loss or weight loss or whatever, and you guys chose healing. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to choose that word healing?
So I
Yeah.
think it goes back to when we started this, Larry's uncle, like I mentioned, was in the middle stages of Alzheimer's and dementia. And he really saw himself going down that same path. He has, we talk about in our podcast, and he shared the story where he had this moment where we had just had this lovely family outing with our toddler, his uncle. We went to this great zoo. It was beautiful, just a great family day. And then we went to a restaurant afterwards, and his uncle couldn't remember. We had just left like 20 minutes before. And Larry was like, I don't want this for myself. I don't, he was projecting forward. He's like, I don't know if I'll be around to see our daughter in her kindergarten, much less graduate from high school. And so that was his kind of starting to turn that moment where he's like, I think I need to heal, right? It took him a while after that to kind of figure out how he was going to do that. But it was more about the healing. It was more about looking at the family around us and wanting to be our best selves for our family. And then he started to heal. I started to heal. And we found that my father, unfortunately, also developed dementia. And I remember going through like our healing, going through like finding out about my father's diagnosis and going like, I know now that our daughter won't ever have to do that. Like, because of what the choices and excuse me, because I get emotional. And it's okay. I know it's okay. I get emotional because this is where the power comes in, right? No,
You want me?
no, that's okay. Just knowing that we will, um, that we want that for anyone, like the relief that I have mentally that our daughter will never have to go through that. The fact that we found this way of life and we did this we didn't buy a product. We didn't purchase a program. Now we had coaching because it was him coaching both of us, right? We did do it with coaching, but it was not like we were having to spend hours and hours at the gym or buy all these different products. Our product was knowledge, and in knowledge that had been, I think, buried for a long time. And I think the bearing of that knowledge has caused so many families to not be healed, right? To go through um, how many people do we hear nowadays going through Alzheimer's, dementia, type 2 diabetes? And we just didn't want that for ourselves, for our friends. And so we felt very strongly about the fact that we didn't just lose weight. We don't just look better. We healed inside and out. And so that was why we chose that name. Excuse me for getting emotional.
That's a very beautiful answer, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, no, it's amazing, and it's kind of funny. Like you just kind of take it for granted. It's like we talked about earlier. Like you go to the grocery store and you recognize everything in the middle or in the produce section is food because it's always there, and it's what we kind of grew up around. But we also you don't think it's strange anymore that every handicapped parking stall is taken. There's more people in Costco riding around in scooters than there are people that you can identify as obviously like metabolically healthy. It's just that you're right. Like the state of what is going on with everybody is so poor, but it's so ubiquitous that we just look around and think, oh, this must be normal. It must be normal that I get brain fog in my 40s and my joints hurt. And this is just what it's like to get older. And it's like, no, it's not. Look at you guys. Like you guys are killing it. It was not too late for you. I really enjoyed also hearing about how you were able to share this with your family, especially you, Kay Lynne, with your mother. I thought that was a really amazing story. Not only have you been able to help your daughter, like you were just saying, but also others in your family. Can you share a little bit about how that your own healing journey has expanded out, the ripples that you've created that has helped the people in your family that have been willing to change some things?
Yeah, definitely. So I love how you said who are willing to change
Yeah.
because I think well, first of all, my mom has been our biggest, besides myself and Larry, I think our biggest success family wise, because after, almost, let's see, we're probably 6 or 7 years into our journey before she really embraced it. She saw it, she would brag to all her friends about it, right? But until she actually started doing it and taking the action, did it start working for her. And she was on several medications that we won't mention, that her doctor insisted she needed to be on because of a certain count, right, in her blood work. And she found herself being angry, upset, just not
Brain fog,
brain fog.
barely, move without pain.
And to her credit, for a very long time, she just kind of accepted what her physicians told her and did what her physicians told her. And she started listening to some of the information we had, and she made those changes. She told her doctor she wasn't going to take these certain things. And he said, okay, but you come back in 6 months and we're going to do that blood work. And if it's not good, and she came back in 6 months, it was way better. And she felt so much better. And I will mention that she was always a person who she never had a weight problem. She's maybe at the most been like 35 pounds overweight. She's
But
about
you
five
could
months.
see the stress in her face.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
But yeah, the inflammation and achy joints and all of that. And my mom is 78, and now she's sometimes more active than we are. Like she just helped my sister like move
So,
households and like packing up
yeah,
stuff, moving stuff.
so she lost 20 pounds and she wasn't even trying.
And off those medications. So
Off the
that was the
medications. Yeah.
most successful. Our daughter, she's 15. And anyone that knows teenagers or is around teenagers,
Piece of cake, easy.
it's so easy, roller coaster of easiness. But
Uh,
but she's adopted. We were able to accept her into our household at 6 months. At
8 months.
8 months, sorry, 8 months. We found out she was going to be ours at 6 months. But so when, let's see, around 2 years old, well, and even before that, the doctors were starting to think she had something called failure to thrive because she wasn't meeting growth standards. So like, for example, at her 3rd year checkup, she was in the 3rd percentile for height. And so, like we said before, when we changed for everybody in the family. We did not discriminate. Everyone ate the same food. And that was more out of being lazy on our part. Like, I'm just not going to fix multiple meals.
I don't.
Well, and
I,
also, no, I'd say that in jest. We knew what we were doing was going to be helpful for us, and we wanted that again to heal our daughter. What we didn't understand is even though since she was placed in our home, we were feeding her organic, right? We were giving her the fish oil drops. We were doing all the vitamins.
but I was getting like whole grain,
Right? Yeah, whole
the
grain goldfish.
whole grain goldfish, right? The
Right,
healthier.
exactly.
Amazing.
We were doing all of that, but still, again, she had this like almost failure to thrive. Well, what happened when we took grains out of our diets as a family, sweet girl like healed her gut. And she went from third percentile in height to her 4-year appointment, 25th percentile in height. She is now taller than me. And throughout, like up through into elementary school, it was very easy for her to eat the same way as us. Now it got a little more challenging once she went into elementary school. She attended the elementary school I teach it, and a lot of kids partake in the school lunches, which I don't know how familiar you are with school lunches in the United States, but they are very poor nutrition wise, or they're based on our traditional food pyramid, and and she just got much more interested in what all the other kids were eating. So it has been more of a struggle since then to help her see, like, how we eat and why we eat this way.
But I was just thinking about this the other day as Kay Lynne mentioned she's adopted. Bio mom was homeless, so she had a lot. She was before placed in our home at 8 months. She was on soy formula, so a lot of
Behind the 8 ball.
potential behind the 8 ball. But because not perfect and never let the perfect be the enemy of the good. She's never had an ear infection. She's rarely been sick, even with bio mom homeless, I think,
Very healthy.
time did we ever give her any type of antibiotic. It was just that one time for a more acute thing. So only once. And she's never had a cavity, even though we aren't sticklers for teeth brushing. The no grain. So she's benefited in countless ways. And it is an art. We have one basic family rule that remains to this day. We will not fix her, even to this day, another type of dinner. So we want her to be present at the dinner table, but I worked for Dr. Fung and Megan Ramos. I'm not going to tell somebody who says they're not hungry, eat anyway. So she doesn't have to eat when we eat, but we put that dinner away. And if she gets hungry later that evening, she has to eat that before anything else. And so and that's why we started healing with the diamonds, because, I mean, families can drown if the parents aren't healthy, the grandparents aren't healthy, the kids aren't healthy. I mean, you're running on like caffeine and energy drinks, just like the whole family just trying to muddle through the day. And it doesn't have to be that way. And what you pointed out before is normal and common are very different. So sadly, common is hungry 24/7, 5 pills, brain fog, but that is very, very abnormal.
Well said. I just can't even imagine what a gift it is to be able to be raised like that. And of course, she's got her own agency, and of that age of where you're not going to
Yeah.
be able to say much to her. It must be a different story, Kay Lynne, when she got taller than you, and you have to kind of look up to her and ask her to take the garbage out versus looking down at her and telling her. But to picture like what life had been like, differently. What would your lives have been different?
God.
If you've been raised that way, and to have energy and not fall asleep in class and like all these things. One thing you asked me earlier, Larry, that I probably never even really got to is if I ever had like a rock bottom moment. And I've been very fortunate that I've had decent health, and, I played ice hockey my whole life. I've been a cyclist. I could do the things that I like to do. So in that sense, like I've never had any serious health issue. To be 41, almost turning 42, and I've got as much energy now than I ever have, and I feel great and perform at a high level. I definitely wouldn't say that I've had a rock bottom as far as health. You just don't realize some of the things you're dealing with, the background anxiety that you are kind of dealing with and not really thinking about the chronic injuries that always come back. Even stupid things like athlete's foot or getting sunburns. There's just all these weird things that you have to deal with. And then, you find something different and it starts working for you and works for your clients, and all these health things just get so much better. That's why, again, I love that, we've been talking a lot about weight loss in this conversation, but it goes so much deeper than that with, with healing. And really, again, why I love how you chose the name healing and how you kind of landed on that. And on that note, I wanted to highlight something you guys said earlier, which I find curious and I also find very common. I grew up with a very like religious kind of a background. And I'm not as religious now, but I do find that as I've changed my diet, especially taking the step from mostly low carb to keto, and then especially going to a carnivore diet, which I've been on for the last 6 years, I would absolutely say that this diet enhances my spirituality.
Yes.
And that's a word that you guys used earlier. And I would love if you could expound on how that's impacted you and how you could describe that.
Well, I've been,
Go ahead.
I've been on a very deep spiritual level. And if you have time, I want to ask you some questions about how you work with clients. One thing that we haven't quite talked about, and I would like your views on this. I'm a pattern maker. And so I've had hundreds, maybe thousands of people that I've coached through the fasting method. And we're growing right now, and we're going to start getting those numbers with healing with the diamonds. But mindset is very important. And there's a really powerful cliche. And one of the reasons for me is healing. When I worked at the fasting method, I would do a weight loss community meeting. And I would always start it saying, focusing on weight loss is the absolute worst way to lose weight. You have to have deeper whys than weight loss. They might, like for Kay Lynne, they might get somebody through the door and into the gym for a while and cutting calories. And then by February or March, the gym's like, ooh, they're not coming anymore, but they paid for a whole year. Woo!
Yeah.
They still have nothing against gyms. They still have access to the gym. But mindset is my successful clients. It's always mindset and having powerful whys. Whys are fuel for lifestyle changes. So I found, at least for me and most of the clients, there's typically, we talk about two sets of whys. The positive whys, which are tremendous fuel for successful change. Tremendous. I want to play with my kids, my grandkids. I want to hike. I want to be playing pickup basketball or keeping up with the 20-year-olds in cycling at 40, 50, 60 for me, whatever it might be. And negative wise, certainly harness that. Kay Lynne, the universe told me at 47, which was over 12 years ago, I'm 60 now, that I would be dead at 50. And so we're going to get to the spirituality, but I just wanted to point out, and I had a third category of whys. And I think both men and women can harness this, of course. But for the men out there, don't be a chump and eat ultra processed food, right? Don't be a chump and listen to conventional medical advice if you don't think it's wise, right? Have no respect for authority. So I had that third level of whys, that my grandmother had her leg amputated from type 2. My beloved uncle had Alzheimer's. I'm like, you know what? F the power that be. I'm going to eat what my conclusions have come to. That not wanting to be, as Pink Floyd said, another brick in the wall. But on spirituality, it's wanting to be that my healing was beyond my healing. And in retrospect, the universe, I think, granted me profound healing because the universe knew that I would pay it forward. So to me, my base spirituality has become non-duality. Like you're my brother. Everyone on planet Earth, every plant, every animal is another expression of source. So as we become more spiritual, we become more energetic. To the point, if somebody were to follow Joe Dispenza, there are people that do tremendous healing via spirituality that haven't done the way of eating changes or the movement changes. Now, typically start adding those. But spirituality in itself, living in the love frequency, not in the guilt, hate, fear frequency. So, if clients want to talk about spirituality, we're absolutely open to giving them resources that we've used. But I know I went a little bit of far, but I have found that the clients who succeed really connect. I encourage them to journal, think about their whys, because I'm telling you, like being physically fit or fitting into a dress size or um, waist size, that's kind of cool. But having these powerful whys are really ubiquitous among my clients that make it a permanent lifestyle. Yeah. So spirituality for me is everything is sacred. Every human is sacred, non-hierarchical. I don't put myself above trees or animals, living in non-duality and, non-hierarchy is my personal spirituality.
It's a beautiful answer. I love that.
I think for me, because we both grew up very different, we had very different religious and spiritual upbringings. I, like you, was raised in a very conservative household. And let's see, I think once, and my ideas on religion and spirituality started to kind of branch out during university. I knew that I wanted something different. I wanted to experience a deeper level of understanding and connection with something or someone, right? But I never was really sure how to access that. So I was always trying different things, trying, sweat lodges, Buddhist temples, I was always trying to figure out why am I not connecting? And it's not until I did a lot of soul work leading up to the physical and the nutrition changes, but being able to, when I made the nutritional changes, I became more clear psychologically, like physically and mentally. Things were more clear. I was able to be present in moments and be quiet in moments to access the energy, like, of the universe, source, God, whatever you choose to call him. I was much more able to do that once I attended to my physical need of my, not being a fat burner. Those of you who have tried intermittent fasting or extended fasting, there is a certain high when you are on a fast or even just that extended time like that. I am on top of things. As an elementary school teacher, you got to be on it. It's going to be a rough day. And I was much more able to be on it and be present with these kiddos when I was fasted. And so that's how this has helped me spiritually. I'm much more able to be present and be just aware of how I feel, aware of how I make others feel. And so
Mm.
I'm a better person. I'm a better spouse. I'm a better parent. I'm a better teacher because of these changes I've made.
That's another really lovely answer. That's a great way to say it. It's certainly something I've noticed in my life as well.
So I want to be respectful of your time. I just I checked my phone, but I'm very curious and I'm wondering if the triathlete coach you came across was Phil Maffetone, but people should look up Mark Allen and now Dave Scott. They're all, and Polly Newby, Fraser, Prof. Noakes, they were all fat adapted and they were all the best. Or maybe Dave Scott learned about fat adaptation after because Mark Allen wasn't going to go. I'm not going to share what Phil Maffetone's teaching me with
Exactly.
you, Dave Scott. You're going to have to find that out on your own so that healthy competition. But how, if you're getting people that have, I'm sure you get a wide range of people now, but how do you start explaining to somebody who on the outside is physically fit, not overweight, if you do get clients like this, how do you start telling them about the Nina Teicholz, the Ansel Keys, becoming a fat burning beast and all of that? I'm sure it's unique for each client, but do you see resistance, light bulbs? How do you approach the unlearning step, like helping them unlearn so that they can relearn?
Man, yeah, that's a really great question. And just to answer, like the coach that taught us what I eventually learned in 2012, his name was Bob Siebehar. But I have interviewed Dr. Phil Maffetone and also Tim Noakes. But I just have to say Phil Maffetone's formula, the MAF formula, if somebody wants to know where is the most effective kind of heart rate to burn fat, by using the metabolic carts for as long as I did, I can absolutely validate that using the formula 180 minus your age with a few caveats lines up very, very well with what I was measuring as far as like peak fat burning. So if anybody is curious about that, they can look up MAF, or maximum aerobic function heart rate, and they can see a formula for that, which is again 180 minus your age and a few other caveats in there. But anyway, with the people we work with, most of the people that we work with know what we do. I tell people, like, look, we work mostly with ketogenic and carnivore diets. It's akin to me telling somebody that I work at the Chevy dealership. If you want to learn about Fords, like, I can tell you about cars, but you should probably go to the Ford store if you want to learn about Fords. I work with Chevy. So we just hosted a friend of mine who has been 30 years on a vegan diet. And if somebody came to me and said, hey, I would like to hire you, Casey, to do vegan diet for many years, I would say, God bless you. Like, I hope you'll find tons of people out there. I'm not that guy. You're looking for a Ford at the Chevy dealership at that point. So all that to say, most people know what we do. I mean, it's hard. A lot of people, are maybe they're somewhat interested and on board. And when we're doing workouts with people, we'll talk about them. We'll ask them how their fasting is going, what's working for them, what foods sound good, how they're making it work for their family. Other people are just kind of uninterested and they just want to get workouts done, and they ask less questions. I try to build as many bridges as I can and maintain rapport with people so that, if somebody's not on board with nutrition, but we can maintain a good relationship and they're still, doing something with us, by maintaining a good relationship, maybe down the road they'll be interested and we can help them there. So yeah, it's a great question. We just kind of work with people, for where they're at, what changes they want to make. If nothing else, just pushing in the direction of, like, let's get you a little bit more protein. That is a very low hanging fruit for a lot of people. At least educating the fat isn't bad for you, the way that people have said for the last several decades. Trying to put in a story or share something in a podcast with somebody, talking about mental health and this new emerging field of metabolic psychiatry can get a lot of people interested because of how ubiquitous some of these mental, health disorders are. So yeah, we'll just kind of, try to bring things to somebody's attention as they're interested and help them along that way. But all that to say, like, we will help anybody in whatever capacity they want, whether they're open to this type of information or not. We still can, help them, get them on a good strength training program, make sure that they're doing things with good form, keeping things really simple, and really kind of minimalist as far as what they need to do in the gym. Kind of Kay Lynne was referring to earlier, like, you don't need a package, a program. You don't need to go to the gym, 5, 6, 7 days in a week. You're more likely to burn out if you do that. So getting somebody on whatever plan is going to be best for them, and try to give them little nuggets here and there as they're ready, is kind of how we approach that.
Awesome. And I have a follow-up question, because I realize that a lot of clients that we get and that I encountered in my the fasting method are already enthusiasts, and they've read great books. They've read Mark Sisson. They understand free fatty acids, and ketosis is not ketoacidosis, and a proper human diet. So I really enjoy, and it's the majority of our clients, people that are already well informed, but then we're able to take them to the next level. So that's kind of the opposite. So you must get people like that. And is that kind of thrilling? Like, they're already totally into it, but you can really help, like, streamline. They're very busy, really, like, listen to them and give them that extra 10% of insight that really makes all their other work click. I'm sure do you know what I'm describing? That's really
Yeah.
fun for me.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a blast. Yeah, it's fun to take somebody who is already bought in, and you're just, like you said, like, helping them to disseminate a little bit of extra information, or helping them to go towards, different resources. Is there a cookbook or somebody they should be following that can make things a little bit better? Equipment in the kitchen, that sort of thing. And also, it's fun to have somebody who maybe some of the stuff is not on their radar. Like, I'm thinking of my 15-year-old client who plays high school basketball, And, she doesn't have a ton of, interest in learning about nutrition, but you kind of feed it in there a little bit and say, like, do you notice, some of your, you know, the players on your team are getting injured or they don't have really good energy. Like if you're focusing on protein and getting some fat and avoiding, the mid game, sugar that all your other friends are doing, like you might have better endurance. Your coach might trust you a little bit more in the fourth quarter and put you in. And that's like making your life better. And so, yeah, just in whatever way somebody's open to that information, just trying to feed that in, it's definitely a rush and makes me very excited to wake up in the morning and get going and get helping people just like you.
I love it. So in all of our podcasts that we've done so far, since we do have our objective is to help families heal as a whole, I will kind of turn around and ask you the same question. How has your journey affected like your wife and your family as a whole or your friends?
That's a great question. I love that question. Yeah, I would say within the walls of the four walls of our home, definitely eating the right foods, regardless of what that is, mostly like animal based and going towards like a carnivore diet and to different degrees has made everything just a lot more calm. My wife has had struggles in the past with eating disorders, and definitely I've witnessed her heal that. We're now seeing a lot of research coming out in that direction as well, which is really exciting. But I think if nothing else, just our level of communication, being able to communicate calmly, less grouchily, as you might
Yeah.
say, um, has been really nice. And part of that is, you get older and you're more mature. But I strongly contend that a big part of that is how we've chosen to eat and how it's just brought down the volume on a lot of things, and just being able to resolve conflict and talk things out at a much calmer level has been really, really nice. So that's a great question. I love it.
Maybe we can kind of end with this. I know how valuable time is. You mentioned that you have a dog. We have 3 dogs. How has this impacted your pup's nutrition and lifestyle? No,
Yeah.
I think it's impacted ours.
That's a great question. I love that. We lost a dog a few months ago. We had to put our one of our dogs down, which was really hard. I adopted him. He was 2.5, 3 years old, and he was quite a challenge behaviorally. And I wish I had changed his diet a little bit sooner and just got him onto what dogs should be eating, which is basically the same stuff that we eat. Our digestive system is very much similar to a dog's. They evolved with us in a lot of ways, somewhat, if you want to think of it like invented dogs, and they can handle a lot more protein. Larry, like you were saying earlier, we are constrained in the amount of protein that we can eat, and dogs are not. They can have a lot more protein than we can. And so, yeah, if nothing else, just kind of getting them on less of the kind of kibble and more of the same kind of food that we would eat. I noticed with my dog Tucker, his performance and basically is I don't know, mood. He just seems like he's a much better behaved dog when I'm feeding him some of those things. His favorite treat is duck necks, so we get these frozen duck necks, and he just loves to tear into those. So yeah, it makes it a lot more joyful. I'm sure you guys have noticed the same with your dogs.
Definitely, yeah. Their favorite treats are freeze-dried wild salmon.
Okay,
They go nuts for freeze-dried
Yeah.
wild salmon, and so
sounds pretty good.
yeah,
And
yeah, I know.
yeah,
You laugh. It does. Our kiddo, like, for a longest time, these are dog treats, but they're, like, ethically sourced human-grade food. I would walk in seeing her, like, eating the salmon treats for the dogs. I love that, and I think that also shows that when kiddos are given the opportunity to have nutrient-dense foods and a large selection, they're gonna choose foods that are healthy for them, right? They're gonna make those
Mm.
choices naturally, and that's really what we want to try to bring to show, like, as a family, you can make these changes. You don't have to be perfect, but you can make small changes that have a great ripple effect
Mm.
out.
And I was just thinking, when you were describing how it impacted your family, maybe we should say nutritional coaching for marriages, because we totally noticed that. And if you've never come across this, look it up. I heard it first from NPR years ago, and I would mention it at the fasting method quite frequently. It's the voodoo doll study in couples. And what they did, the researchers only selected couples for the study that scored the highest on the best marriages. So it was the best marriage couples. And then they put them intentionally on a, ultra processed food hypoglycemic roller coaster. So when they bottomed out, they gave them voodoo dolls that represented their spouse.
Heard
And
this.
they were like, and these were healthiest couples. So even the healthiest couples don't treat them each other well on the modern diet. So in all seriousness, coming to us or you would probably, arguably if,
Fix your marriage.
hey,
I love it. Yeah, I'm on board with that. Most of my clients know that, even if I'm giving exercises or counting to 12 poorly, most of our sessions are counseling sessions anyway. So that would be a easy transition into wedding counseling for sure.
So, if our
yeah,
listeners want to
oh,
get in touch with you, and find out more about you, and I'm assuming you work with people virtually as well, not just in person?
Yeah, we do. We work with people in person here in the Salt Lake Valley, and also we work virtually with people all over the world. I've got clients in Dubai and Ireland and New Zealand and all over the place. It's really fun to work with people in that way. But yeah, the easiest place to find us is our website, which is myboundlessbody.com. There you'll find all of our social media. You'll find our podcast. We put out 3 episodes a week. So there's quite a bit of content there. There's some other, things on the website you can find. But the main thing, like if anybody just goes to the website, they can click on a button that says book now, book a call, and people can book a free 30-minute session with us at any time in their own time zone. So we can chat, we can discuss your goals and, try to make some suggestions and help, provide some value for people who are just looking for something free to be able to kind of help them towards their goals. So that's the best place is just the website, which is myboundlessbody.com. And for you guys, the diamonds, where would you like people to go to find you, to connect with you and your work?
Well, healingwiththediamonds.com is our website. There you can sign up for our newsletter. We also have we have coaching in a few different ways. You can coach just with Larry, one-on-one, more nutritional coaching. You can coach with us as a couple and or just me. And my focus is more like looking at your pantry, doing a pantry makeover, looking at easy ways to kind of bring these changes to your whole family that's going to give you the biggest bang for your time and your money, and to try to make these changes fit within a very busy, like, two-person working household.
I love that. Yeah, that's amazing.
they usually go 30 minutes, but we have a get to know us consult. I have to add a button. We're transitioning our website, but my email is pretty simple. Larry, Larry, at healingwiththediamonds. That's probably the overall best email. And yeah, we want people to get to know us and us to know them. We have 3 pillars, which are on our website: food freedom, which is a way of eating any of us love that loves us back. That's a key pillar. Then what we call metabolic healing, which is, the science, how to be anti-inflammatory, how to have the best cellular health, and so forth. And then joyful practices. So that would be movement, nature time, spirituality, purpose, things like that. And those are very strong pillars, but we want to make sure we're a good match before anyone signs up for an individual consult or a package consult.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think
it's
it is a fun format to go back and forth. I enjoyed that.
Quite enjoyed it myself. It's fun to try new things, and yeah, just really love you guys and your work, and you're doing amazing things. And by taking it out and sharing it, not only with your own family but with others out there, I think is really really special. I'm really glad we put this together. This has been a really valuable and meaningful conversation for me. I appreciate the emotion as well and being really vulnerable with that. So thank you guys so much. This has been a lot of fun.
yeah, thank you. And, speaking of non duality, when any of us heals, the whole world heals. So healed people heal people, hurt people. So, and it sounds absolutely for you and your wife, and this should not be discounted, a labor of love. So being able to do a labor of love, I know you have a lot of gratitude to be able to do that. So thank you. 3 podcasts a week is
That's
unbelievable.
amazing.
So
I'm
yeah,
impressed.
thank you for your service to really global healing, with your clients in New Zealand and Ireland and everywhere in between. That's how it's going to get better, right, Casey? It's people healing from the individual family level on up to the globe.
Yeah, yeah, we all have our voice, and doing what you guys do and sharing that and spreading that healing around is it's going to make a difference. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love that.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.